That was not nice. Okay, let's do it again. All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, I like that much better. Okay, it's so nice to be here today. I know it's a long weekend. We're celebrating Canada's 150th birthday today. Oh, yesterday. The whole weekend. And also, we're gonna have a lecture by Rafael today. And we're going to be talking about humility and a lot of things that are so important in our lives. And today's Lunch and Learn. And for everyone that knows what Lunch and Learn is, we're going to have, right after a lecture, there's lunch served.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. Surprise lunch? No. That is going to be served right after the lecture. So for all of you guys that want to stay and participate with us, obviously everyone's welcome. And this is the way we support TSS activities by having the lunch. And if all of you, if you want to contribute, we can talk about that later after the lecture. But everyone's welcome. Now. It's so important for us, particularly in moments of celebration like this, to think about the essence of life in general and the importance of understanding God and humility and patience. These are the core elements of our existences. That's what makes us thrive in our road of evolution. So today we're going to be listening and a lot of that by Rafael, and we're going to be taking that with us, hopefully, and propagating that in our lives in the weeks to come and the days to come. And that's the goal of being here today. So we're going to start with a passage by the book Happy Life, with Marcio, who's going to come and help us read that, and after that we're going to have a prayer. And we're going to go straight into our lecture. We're going to have a few minutes after the lecture so we can ask some questions and comments, and followed by our passes and the Lunch and Learn, the lunch afterwards, a delicious lunch we're going to have today. So, Marcio, if you can please come and help us here. Thank you.
So, it's the book Happy Life, de Valdo Pereira Franco, by Joana de Angelis. Do not trade tomorrow's peace of mind for today's corrupting pleasure. What is not moral can never provide harmony. Fugitive and voracious, it passes away rapidly, leaving the acid of dissatisfaction burning the body and the shadow of remorse in the wounded conscience. It is better to remain thirsty than to be sorry. What you have not experienced will not torment you, and what you need now will sooner or later arrive in good order for your satisfaction. So let us all close our eyes, leave behind everything that connects us to the matter, connect us to what is happening in our lives right now. And let's for a moment pause everything. Take this opportunity to hear and to look everything that we're gonna learn today with our different eyes, with the eyes of our spirits, with the eyes of our souls. And let us take all of that with love that can go straight to our hearts, and that can be in our minds once we leave TSS later today. Let's all ask our Master Jesus, ask all the good spirits that are here today to bless this session, to bless this lecture, and to inspire our brother Rafael. So be it. Thank you, Marcio. Thank you, Marcus. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So today, as Mark was saying, we're going to talk about humility, or the title of our lecture is Finding the True Glory in Humility, or as we call more commonly, humbleness. Why is this so important? Throughout the teachings of Jesus, we see that humbleness, it's incredibly important for us to achieve the necessary spiritual development. In chapter 9 from Gospel According to Spiritism, or in Matthew chapters 5 through 9, is where Matthew describes the Sermon of the Mount. I'm sure that we all heard about the Sermon of the Mount. Mahatma Gandhi once said that if we lose all the religious books in the world, if we still had the Sermon of the Mount, we would still be good. So we will still have anything we need. So, during the Sermon of the Mount, Jesus says that blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the earth. Sometimes the translation says inherit. So the meek are those who will continue to be in this planet, who will inherit and possess this planet. So we connect this with our knowledge of Spiritism, with the regeneration world, with the transition that the Spirits tell us that we are going through. So who are the ones who are ready to remain here and during this transition until the world becomes a regeneration world? It says the ones that we call meek. What is being meek? There are several virtues that we need to have in order to be meek. And the three most important that I selected is peace-loving, patient, and humble. If we want to be ready to continue in this world throughout this transition, or better yet, in a much more general concept, if we want to make the world a better place, what should I do? We should work in ourselves on those virtues. So humbleness is one of the most important virtues that we can develop in ourselves. But what is the meaning of being humble? Does it mean that I have to lower my head to everybody, to agree to everybody? Does it mean that I won't fight for what I think is right? Should I accept everything that happens around me? Is that what it means to be humble? It's much more complex and deep than that. So that's what we are going to try to present today or discuss. So we start, of course, with our Master Jesus. And a long time ago he left to us a parable that is described in Luke chapter 18, or we can also find in chapter 27 of the Gospel According to Spiritism. At the time of Jesus, to go to the Temple of Solomon is a very important place for the people of Israel, where the Ark of the Covenant was. So it's a very important place. So at that time, it was very common for people to go and pray in this temple, at least once a week. And it was a very social event, as it is here. We come here in this long weekend to learn a little bit more about Spiritism, to pray, to meet with each other, to eat together. So it's a very important part of our week to come here.
And it was at that time. So Jesus tells us that a publican and a Pharisee went to pray in this temple. And the Pharisee, he did his prayer out loud. And he said, "Thank you, Lord, for letting me be what I am and not what this guy is, the publican, a thief, a traitor." And the publican, he couldn't even raise his head. He was so ashamed of what he was. We're going to see what is it that he was. That he just asked God, "God, help me to bless me because I am a sinner." So we have two complete pictures, and Jesus said, this publican, this guy, he went home justified, and the other, the Pharisee, did not. So what does it mean justified? It means that he went home with a clear conscience, and he was morally correct. Morally correct. That's what it means to be justified. So beyond God, he was doing the right thing. Why? How can a guy that says, "I'm a sinner," to be doing the right thing? We need to understand first what is a publican and what is a Pharisee. Pharisee is always the bad guy. We always hear in the parables that he is the bad guy. Is it that so? So let's see first what is a Pharisee. The history of the people of Israel, or we know that later on, we had 12 tribes, correct? The sons of Israel, each one gave rise to one tribe. After some time, after several wars that they had between themselves, there was one that became predominant, which is the tribe of Judah. So then, instead of the history of people of Israel, it became the Jews, because it was the last tribe that remained. So after this tribe remained, we can divide history in several ways, but one of the ways that the historians divide the history of the Jews is in two types, in two periods. The first temple period and the second temple period. So the first temple period it ended in 586 BC. So that's when the Babylonians, they invaded Judea and they destroyed the Temple of Solomon. So then we can imagine this. We are here at TSS. It's a simple house, it's a basement, but it's important to us. So what would we feel if some people or a different group came here and destroyed everything? We would come here in one Sunday and there would be only ashes. We would feel bad, right? Now imagine if this house had been part of our civilization for more than 1,000 years. And we had a room where we put everything that we thought it was sacred. Nobody can touch it. And then we come and everything is destroyed. So it was a very big deal for the Jews, for the people of Judea. So they were taken as slaves by the king Nebuchadnezzar to Babylon. And they remained there for 40 years. It is said that during this time is where they developed most of what we know about the Old Testament. So they remained there until a more powerful people came and destroyed Babylon, the Persians. So then the Persians allow the Jews to go back to their land, to Canaan. And when they went back, they rebuilt the Temple of Solomon. So then it starts the second temple period. This was around 537 BC. Okay, what does that have to do with humbleness? We're gonna get there. So we need to understand, in order to understand humbleness, we need to understand pride. So then they rebuilt the Temple of Solomon, and they thrived again. They have their temples in the same place, so they were very happy. Then Alexander the Great came, and he conquered the known world, and after he died, he left the provinces to his generals, and each general generated one particular people. So 400 years later, one of these people, called the Seleucid Empire, again they went to Judea and they conquered Jerusalem. And again, well, they didn't destroy the temple, they sacked the temple, but they did something worse. At that time, there was this process, what we called Hellenization. Hellenization means to make it or to force it to be Greek. So the Hellenistic people are those who adopted the Greek culture and they force it upon other cultures. So they sacked the temple, and they wanted the Jews or the people from Judea to become Greek, to start worshipping the Greek gods. So they were forced to worship the Greek gods. So imagine how that would feel. And then there was one guy called Judas Maccabeus. He revolted. He organized a revolt, and they destroyed the Seleucid Empire. So they realized that they were strong. They were a strong people. So then, because of Judas Maccabeus, the Jewish culture was free again. But they had no king. Their king had been destroyed or defeated by the Babylons a long time before. So what happened? When they freed the country, when they freed that region, they needed to create a new political party. We have to put some leader there. We don't have a king, but we have to select a group that will be responsible for the laws. And one of those groups were the Pharisees. So now we understand. The Pharisees, they were responsible, they were the guardians of the freedom of the Jewish culture. So that's why they were, well, that's not justification to be proud, but that's where their pride comes from. So every time there was a risk, or the culture or their ways was questioned or challenged, they felt that revolt again. They felt that with the Romans, they felt that with Jesus. Of course, they kind of changed the laws of Moses in their own way. Since this happened 150 years before Jesus, and when Jesus came, they had own other interests, political interest. So that was the Pharisee. So he was the responsible to keep the Mosaic law. And what is a publican? A publican, at the time of Jesus, the whole Judea was a province of the Roman Empire. So it had been conquered again. So again and again and again. So this time was the Romans. And of course, the Romans would come and conquer the territory and tell the people, you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to make you worship Greek gods or even Roman gods. You can do whatever you want, but you have to pay me tax. You're giving me money, I'll let you go in your own way. But in order for them to get the money, they would have to hire someone, a local person, to collect the taxes. And that person was the publican. But it wasn't only his only activity to collect taxes. He was always responsible for any public project, to build a new building or anything else. He was an officer. So he was responsible for several things. And one of them was collecting taxes. So the publican, at the parable of Jesus, he realized, or he was thinking, I am a traitor of my people. I'm working for those who are exploring my own people. So that's why he said, I am a sinner. Why is that good? Why Jesus said that he was justified? It's not that he was lowering himself. Probably he had much more value than he put on himself. The difference is he was completely naked spiritually in front of God. The Pharisee, he had this shield that we create for ourselves that we call ego. We're going to see the opinion of Joanna de Angelis on that, but it's very hard for us to accept all our failures, all our defects. So then we create this shield that we propagate. So people see the shield and not me. I don't show myself. I show this image, this illusion of what I am. And that creates a lot of problems. And that makes me prisoner of myself. Because how can I work? How can I become better if I don't face my own demons? And this guy, this publican, he was completely naked. He said to God, bless me because I am a sinner. So then, in the end of the parable, Jesus said that those who raise themselves too much, they're going to be humbled. And those who humble themselves, they're going to be raised. So what does that mean? The one who has that mask, that ego, is the one who doesn't have wisdom about himself. He doesn't know himself. And he has to. He has to know who he really is so that he can grow. That's what it means to be humbled. The other one was already opened. He opened his heart. So he's ready to receive help. That's what Jesus meant with his parable. And one very important exercise that we can do is try to understand both sides. What would we do if we were a Pharisee? Is it that it's very easy for us to judge the parables and tell and think to ourselves that he is always the bad guy. But what if we were dressed with that responsibility? How would we behave? Or, on the side of the publican, what if we had a family to support and we were offered a good job that was working for the Roman Empire? What would we do? So this is a very good exercise to develop humbleness. I'm looking to myself. I'm looking to myself on the shoes of that person. I'm putting myself out there and trying to change how I see that person. In the book The Way, the Truth and the Life by Emmanuel, there is a chapter where he talks about this eagle. But in his words, he called cloaks. Cloaks that we dress, and as symbol of superiority. So he says, throw off your worldly cloak and present yourself to him, God, with nothing more or less than who you are. So if you want to be helped, if you want really to grow, first thing you have to do is to recognize that the conquests of your life or your victories are not just your own. So to recognize that you're not the supreme being of your own life. God is. We are here, we have this life because He gave us this life. So this is one very important topic, one very important exercise, to know that we are here because God gave us this life. So He allowed us to be alive today, to be in this new incarnation, to be sitting down here, to have the opportunity to be in this house, to have the job we have, to have the family we have. However, it's kind of scary to put our fate in the hands of something out there. To say that everything I have is because God allows that to happen. It's better to say I am where I am now because I built it. Of course, we have our credit. We work hard for everything that we have. We do our part, but we do our part so that God can do His work through us. So God works through us, and we have the merit to connect to Him. But it's His will. It's His will. But sometimes it's better for us to create a cloak and to dress that cloak and use it every day outside to interact with people. We don't want people to see who we really are, our weaknesses, our defects, things that we agree but everybody else disagree. So I don't want them to know that I really agree with that. And if we see in all the readings that we do for the Spiritism doctrine, let's take one example. People who are in umbral, people who are going through that particular purging situation. Umbral is nothing more than a purge. We go there so that we can get rid of all the black fluids that we have in us. So people who are there, what is the right mindset for them to be rescued? If you read in the André Luiz books, those guys that they come from the colonies and they go to umbral and they rescue those brothers and sisters who are suffering there. Who are the ones who they pick up? And who are the ones that they leave there? The ones that they pick up is those who realized that they need to ask for help. It's not enough for me to be on my own. I need to ask for help. Or those who took the cloak off. That's the power of pain and suffering. Suddenly we don't care anymore what other people will think. I just need help. I just need someone to help me. I really don't care anymore. I don't care about anything else. I just want help to ease my pain. That is why Jesus, he preached to those who were suffering, because they had no cloaks. They were all naked. So that's what we need to receive help. Humbleness gives us power. So to be humble requires strength. There's nothing harder to face ourselves, to face that happened because what I did, because of my own choices. And that gives us more power. So I need to initialize the process. After I initiate, then power comes with it. What power? From whom? From God. And for all those spiritual mentors that want to help us, but they can't, because we have a cloak on. So this is for everything. This example of the umbral mediumistic meetings, those who are helped are those who ask for help. Ask and you shall receive. When we come for the pass, how can we absorb the pass and keep that energy with us when we know that we need help? If I come here thinking, yeah, okay, so now you give me pass and I want all my problems to go away, and I don't want other people to bother me because they are to blame for everything that happens to me. So that person is wearing a very hard armature. It's not even a cloak, it's an armature. So of course, the fluids and the help is not absorbed. That person cannot be helped. There is another, not a parable. This is a story, again from Jesus. It's from Humberto de Campos in the book Boa Nova. I don't think it has been translated to English. I'm not sure. So in this book, Humberto de Campos tells every chapter is a piece of history. It's not history, it's a story about Jesus and the disciples. And so it's very nice because it's very clear, and most of it is not what we read in the Bible. And it said that Jesus, he was always with John the Baptist. They were always together since they were children. And Jesus would show him the land and explain things to him. At least people, their mothers looking, they were always two serious children, always talking about serious things. We don't know what they were talking about. Probably we'll never know. Maybe they were talking about the time we are living today. But they were always talking about several things. And right after Jesus started to travel and to talk about the kingdom of God, they went to the desert, John and Jesus. And they stayed there for a few days fasting and meditating. And after that they separated. John went to his mission and Jesus went to his own way. So then after the desert he went to Jericho. So he was in the Judea desert for a few days. So of course he was hungry and thirsty. So in Jericho there was an oasis. So he stayed in Jericho. And after Jericho he went to Jerusalem. All walking. At that time they used to do everything walking. So then he was at the temple, sitting on the steps. So he was looking as a traveler, so probably full of dust. However, the Pharisee, again, there was several Pharisees, but one was only one went to talk to him. They were attracted to him. So we can think on history, on all those important people who preached and planted the seeds of very important ideas. Why do they go through so much trouble? Those people, they have a magnetism. They attract other people. They cannot go unnoticed. They attract other people. People feel their mental fields and they feel gravitating towards them. So Jesus was there, sitting down on the steps. He wasn't doing anything. He was there, thinking on whatever deep thoughts like a spirit like Jesus can think of. And this Pharisee went to him and asked, what are you doing in this city? And he said, I came to spread the kingdom of God. So now we know the story of the Pharisee and how they came to be. So of course, right away he felt challenged. He is the doctor of the law. He inherited the freedom that came from Judas Maccabeus revolt. So he is the one, he is the authority to do exactly what Jesus said. So then he laughed. He wasn't laughing inside. He wasn't. But he was wearing the cloak. He couldn't show that he was surprised. So he was wearing the cloak, that shield of the ego. So then he asked Jesus, who is going to help you? You're just one person sitting there. And he said, my companions will come from all over. But the thing is, the way that he said, completely serene. He wasn't bothered by the questions or the laughing or anything else. So he had a kind of strength, very strong field. And the Pharisee was feeling that. There's no going through this guy. What he wanted is for Jesus to feel threatened by his authority. So then he asked, do you know any prince, any king? Have you gone to Rome or Athens? And Jesus said, I know love and I know goodwill. What else do I need? So, when Kardec asked the spirits, what model should we see or should we understand as that we have to follow? Is there anybody that has achieved the evolution that you are talking about throughout this book that we can mirror ourselves? And they said, see Jesus. See, observe, understand Jesus. So what Jesus was showing at that steps, sitting down with the Pharisee, is the power of humbleness. He knows who he is. He knows what he has to do. And that gives him that power. Nobody who uses a cloak or the shield of the ego will be able to go against the power that comes from a person who is humble. So humbleness is not agree with everything. No. It's just to know your place. It's to know that we all need help. That we all need to work together if we want this world to be better. And first of all, we need to recognize our own defects, our own weaknesses, and not be ashamed of showing it. If you show the weaknesses and what you're working on, what would people... nobody can put you down. Because you're already showing what you are. Nobody's going to unveil anything. That's who you are. And automatically, your mentors and the spiritual friends and God, they work through you and they give you power. By continuing, let me just take a sip of water. Even knowing all this, we still create cloaks. In our everyday life, we still use cloaks. Why is it so hard to get rid of our cloaks? Using the terminology of Emmanuel. Then, we see of what Joanna de Angelis has to say. So in the book, Existential Conflicts, in the first chapter, in the first sentences, she explains, of course, most of those books, Joanna de Angelis, Andrea Luiz, Emmanuel, every sentence is, they're so deep that it takes a long time for each paragraph. So she explains, in our body, we have we have several systems, but the ones that she picked up are two. The central nervous system and the endocrine system. So the central nervous system is our brain, spinal cord, and it is instantaneous. The message from our spirit, they get to every cell instantaneously from traveling of charges inside of the neurons. The endocrine system, it involves the secretion of hormones by the endocrine glands. So it's slower to respond, but everlasting. Not everlasting, long-lasting. And they are joined at the hypothalamus. It's kind of in the middle of our head. And she says, our spirit is directly connected to those two systems. It responds to those two systems. Or those two systems respond to our thoughts. So then she says something very important that I feel better if I just read it to you very fast. It's not going to be long. Although the self is the origin of emotions, it is the organic mechanism that has the purpose of expressing them. So our body expresses what we are feeling. However, successive disturbing emotion discharges overload the nerves in such a way that invariably they transfer those which are more difficult to accept to the archives of unconscious, generating the psychological escapes to that place where many patients would like to remain. So the title of this chapter is Psychological Escape. So it's saying that the strong emotions, they make us feel pain, physical pain. We feel it in our bodies. And that for a long time, it make our body to secrete hormones that are going to create imbalances. So we suffer. We suffer with very strong sadness, depression. Our body responds to that, responds to our spirit. So what do? We store those emotions. We store deep inside of us, in our subconscious, so that we don't have to deal with that. We try to escape the hard situations. We don't want to face it. If we do something, nobody can judge us as ourselves, right? If we do something very wrong, and we see that we cause suffering that hurts us so much that sometimes we repress it and we put deep inside of us, and we don't want to deal with that. That's a psychological escape that Jonas Lange is talking about. And that is why we create those cloaks, this ego, to protect our body. So we protect ourselves from feeling pain using this shield. However, those problems are there exactly to show us who we are, to humble ourselves. It's a divine mechanism to make us understand who we are, so we can work on the topic. Not escape from the problem, but work on it, so that we don't do it again. To do what we can to improve. So every time we are using those cloaks, we are not growing, we are stuck. And for us to be humble, it requires the strength to uncloak ourselves, to see what has to be worked on. So this is wisdom and strength. Another practical example. Sometimes we choose a path, or it's a mix of we choose to go through that path, and that path it's unveiled to us. So it's very easy when we see we are on that path in life. And sometimes those paths, they require us to gather material titles like doctor, master, professor, teacher, officer, president, senator, governor, premier, minister, etc. Those titles are valid, but they are valid for our life here, so that we can fulfill our duties. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, I don't remember exactly the words, but if it says that if we want to know what God wants for us, see what He has given you. If you have a field in front of you and a plow, what should we do? It's very easy. Should I take that plow and put on the wall so that everybody can see? You see? That's my plow. Come here, I'll show you how beautiful it is. Our titles, or any other thing, any other tool, is to be used. To be used so that God can work through us. We have the responsibility to let His work go through us. And this is humbleness. It's not just agree with everybody, but to know what is your place. It's not just for you. It's not just for you to show to everybody and put another cloak or put some jewels in your cloak. We all have to help each other. We all have our positions in this huge mechanism to make this world a better place. We all have specific functions. And in another book, so it is so easy because we have so many books and they tell us exactly all that we have to understand in order to be happy. But we still don't. So in another book, in the realms of mediumship, André Luiz, he was attending a lecture in the Ministry of Communications. The instructor was Alberio. So this guy was giving a lecture in this ministry, and he says, "We are all mediums in the lines of work in which we are situated." So everything that we are doing, it's a mediumship. Why is a mediumship? Mediumship, it means that something is working through you. So you are not working alone. You have a part on a much bigger picture. So we are all mediums in whatever we do. And he goes further with another instructor, this time Aulus. So this is in the last part of the book, in the last chapter of the book. They are saying their goodbyes, and Aulus, after all the teachings throughout the book, he wants to finish with something very clear so that André Luiz can understand what it means, mediumship. So then they were walking on a road, and they passed by a farmer. So then he said, "You see, the farmer is the medium for harvest." Then they walk a little bit further and they see an artisan. And he says, "An artisan is the medium for useful things." So we can adapt and use other words. A sculptor is the medium for art and beauty. Sweepers, those guys who clean the streets that we don't pay much attention to, those are mediums for cleanliness. Judge is the medium for the law. A father and a mother are mediums for life itself. So we are all mediums. Everything comes from God. Our victories come from our hard work in aligning ourselves with the will of God. To do our duties the best we can with love. Understanding who we are. That gives us power and long-lasting happiness. So our victories come from Him. He gave us everything. This is the key to understanding and to start developing humbleness. To know that we are part of His work and we need His help. We occupy the positions that we occupy today, whatever it is, to accomplish His work. And that is the true nature or the true glory of humbleness and humility. So I finish now with a phrase or a paragraph from the prayer of André Luiz in the same book, In the Realms of Mediumship. So he says, "Lord Jesus, uproot the harmful weeds of indiscipline and pride from the field of our souls, so that simplicity may favor our renewal." Thank you.
Thank you, Rafael, for this fantastic explanation on this interesting topics, humility and mediumship. Well, we learned so much. So we have a few minutes now. If anyone has any comments or questions regarding what we talked about today, and if we have anything on the internet too, it's the time for us to, okay, Carlos there. Any comments? No? Okay, so I have a comment question. I guess we can chat a little bit about it. So I think the concept of mediumship that we showed today is phenomenal, because it talks about us being mediums of so many things, right? Obviously it could be for good things, and sometimes it could be for bad things too, right? And it's a tool. So in the end, it's all up to us to figure out how to use this powerful tool we have. And obviously may one day all of us be mediums of happiness and love and so many good things, right, that connect all of us, and help those who are still being mediums of anger and all those things that surround us, like on a daily basis, right? All of us have our issues during the days, and sometimes we're being mediums of not so many good things. And obviously a lot of spirits will come by and connect to that energy and tag along with us, like playing tag, hanging us and holding hands and staying with us, either if they sharing the good vibes or the bad vibes, right? So that's, in a way, like in a big summary of all of the spiritual interactions that we deal with on a daily basis, right? So now I think my common question is that when we talked about the story of Jesus, and when he walked up to the to, I think it was Jericho, right? When we arrived, and everyone was attracted to him. So where's that energy? What's that energy that's attracting him? What do you guys think? Why people are so attracted, even though like he looked so, he looked like someone who walking in the desert for 30 days or something. That doesn't look very attractive, right? So, anyways, what do you think? What do you guys think?
But I believe that he had all those virtues that we're talking about. One of them, the humbleness.
Yeah.
So we know that our thought, we think and it goes out there.
Yeah.
So it's always going. So we are always sending thoughts, and we kind of create this atmosphere around us. So you imagine a person that has so much peace. Where he is, wherever he is, whatever he's doing, there's so much peace in there. And that's actually what we all want. That's why we put cloaks and create egos, because we don't want to suffer anymore. We want peace, but we don't know how to create peace for ourselves. So we shield ourselves as if that will be an answer. It is not. So then people get close to this peace and this person, and they feel good. They feel, man, it's so good to talk to you. I don't even need to talk to you. I just need to sit here and look at you. Or I can touch your clothes and suddenly I'm healed.
Yeah.
I just want to be near you. Just let me sit here near you.
Yeah.
So I believe that's what I would feel if I was there close to Jesus.
That's absolutely interesting, because he's the really medium of God's love. That's what he's doing there. That's why he incarnated here. So he allowed us, exactly what Rafael said, he allowed us to feel a little bit closer to the Creator. Isn't that powerful? Who's not attracted to that? Can we do that? Yes, we all can do that. Not exactly the same level of mediumship that we're talking about here, but can't we just smile at each other? Aren't we being mediums of happiness and love? That's exactly what the message is. Sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes that's all we need to be attracted to each other, is just to, have the good vibes around us, right? And that's a lot about, I think, the one of the big messages of today, that we're not alone. Like Rafael said, we're not alone. We need each other. That's why we're all here, right? So, thank you, Rafael, for
thank you, Marcus,
for the great lecture. Okay, so now we're going to proceed with the passes, and I'm sure all of you know, but I'll just explain briefly that the passes are this transfusion of good energies. We're being mediums, right, when we're doing that. And I'm going to ask all everyone involved in the passes to